Welcome everyone to another episode of Come to Work with Me. My name is Audrey and today we'll be chatting with Leanne. But before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we all meet today. And we'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. And I'm so excited to welcome Leanne to have a chat with us today. So Leanne, hi, how are you?
I'm well, Audrey, and I'm very happy to be here. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, this is the first question I ask everyone. Who are you and what do you do?
My name is Leanne Russ. I'm pretty eccentric, I'm first to admit, person. I live in the hills in Gippsland in my straw bale house with my animals, and I'm a National Disability Coordination Officer, which doesn't really describe my role at all. So we work at a strategic level. There's a team of us all across the country. There's 31 of us. We work at a strategic level to remove barriers for people with disabilities entering tertiary education.
Amazing. So tell us a little bit of your story about how you got to where you are now. How did you first start out, high school, uni, your career? Let's go.
Okay. So went to high school, went to uni, was living in a uni share house. I was working 8 hours a week in the library at uni, which was, look, it was very cruisy, but didn't leave me with much fun money. And I was a pretty social young adult and I liked to have a bit more fun than my 8 hours a week was paying me for, and off study wasn't much. And a new housemate moved into the house and she was working in the disability sector in a community residential unit. And she was like, because I was studying psychology, behaviour science. And she said, you'd be really good in the sector. We need people with your background, apply for a job. We really need people. So I applied for the job and started. And that was when I was 18. So that was 27 years ago. And I've essentially worked in the sector ever since. I've had little time outs here and there, but I have, it's my career. It's my chosen field now. I'm quite passionate about it, which is what brings me here.
I love it.
So I worked as a carer, a disability support worker all the way through uni. I graduated and worked in a casework counsellor role in the mental health sector. And I was doing my supervision as a psychologist then. I've worked as a house supervisor. I've worked as an area manager. I guess the longest job I've had in this sector was working as a workplace assessor on the national panel of assessors in the disability employment sector. So I was going out to workplaces and talking to people about what support they needed to remain in employment. That was going to be a temporary job as well, because I wasn't planning on staying long when I got the job. And 10 years later, I left. So it's that kind of sector, it pulls you in.
Absolutely. I do have a question though. You've said you've done a tertiary course, psychology, sorry.
Yep.
To work in disability work, do you have to have a tertiary qualification? Can you do a TAFE course? What's the line of study?
Okay.
If you're interested.
Because we have the NDIS now, and the sector actually needs, so frontline workers needs to double by the end of next year. So we've got really big demand for frontline staff. A lot of the larger organisations will take you on with no previous either experience or qualification, but most of them will kind of ask you to commit to undertaking that study. One of the other jobs I've done in the disability sector is I've taught the Certificate 4 course. It's a great course, not that I'm biased.
So it is a TAFE course. So you don't necessarily have to go to uni to do it.
Absolutely not. No. I'd say probably most people working in the sector haven't gone to uni because there's not really a directly related university course, but it's a Certificate 4 course. It takes you a couple of months. It's a good, interesting course and it's not difficult at all.
No, that's awesome. So what kind of person do you believe would be a well-suited worker in the disability working industry?
Okay, so the fundamentals you need to work in the disability sector, the absolute number one characteristics you need are a fundamental belief that people with a disability deserve a good life. Okay, you don't learn that at uni or TAFE. That's something that comes from here. You can't teach that kind of thing. if you believe that, if you can work in a customer service type role, so if you've worked in the hospitality sector or retail or anything like that, if you can talk to people, if you can treat everyone as an equal, that's the kind of thing you need to work in the disability sector. It's not as difficult as some people make out.
But other than that, you've just got to have a good heart and open-mindedness, I guess,
Absolutely.
is important.
Be open to experience. It helps if you're confident in yourself. But once again, I'm a big believer in that just about any skills you need, you can learn, especially in the disability sector. When I look at when I first started, I wasn't confident at all. I didn't know what I was doing, but you can learn, especially when you're starting out. People will go, oh, you're just new. I'll show you how to do things. You won't be thrown in the deep end completely. It's not the bad old days of the sector, You'll be taught how to do things. You'll do a wide range of things and you will meet the most wide range of people. It's amazing. Some of the stories we can tell.
Oh, I can imagine. And every day is different. No 2 days are the same sort of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, you've clearly worked across quite a wide range of different roles and specializations throughout your career. What kind of opportunities are available for young people working and starting out in the disability sector?
Okay, there's such a wide range. For example, you might be somebody who enjoys cooking. So you might get a role supporting a young person who is entering employment for the first time and wants to work in a catering position. So you might be assisting them. Or you might be studying to become a speech pathologist or an occupational therapist. So you could work as an allied health assistant in the disability sector. I was speaking to an occupational therapist in East Gippsland a few months ago, and she said she could employ 5 occupational therapists tomorrow if she could get the staff.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a really, and this is all because of the work created by the NDIS. So NDIS has broadened horizons significantly.
And there's so much work out there for so many people at the moment. Like there is so many different opportunities at so many different levels.
Now, people say, oh, because of the pandemic, the budget's in a terrible situation. That is not the case at all. It is like in terms of getting employment, now is a really good time to get your foot in the door, get some experience, because experience leads to more complex roles. And then you end up getting a job like the one I've got, which I consider to be incredibly privileged. This is the best job I've ever had. I get to think and talk for a living, and I get to start my sentences with, I think that, and people will implement my ideas. I'm very aware of how lucky I am.
That's amazing. I was about to say, you have progressed in so many different roles.
Yeah.
So how do you get there? Is it, a boss has reached out? Have you applied for stuff? How have you been able to grow?
I had my first job interview in 12 years last year. So I hadn't moved on from many roles, and that job, in fact, I was headhunted from another role. So there aren't, you will, if you're good at your job and you progress, you will often not have to apply for other roles. You will be found. And people in this sector are hard to come by, like a good fit for the role. So you'll often find yourself just sliding into other ones. But I guess the good thing, about having a behaviour science background is it gives you good written expression, which is a real advantage. Being able to express yourself in writing and verbally, even though I'm not doing a very good job of that now, but being able to express yourself well in writing is a very good fundamental set of skills too. Yeah.
Absolutely. I must ask, what about some of, the stereotypes and misconceptions around the disability industry? You go, sorry.
No, I've got a really good scenario, because preparing for this, I was thinking of scenarios like that. And I remember I was a disability support worker, and I was working with a residential unit, 4 young guys. They were pretty challenging, but I absolutely adored them. And I really liked my co-workers. We were a really tight team. And we were out on a Saturday. It was a warm, kind of sunny day. And we're out on Saturday and we're having a day out, essentially. So we were playing soccer and having a barbecue, you know, pretty normal. These guys were young. They were like 18, 19, 20. I was like 18, 19, something like that, you know. And we'd just been playing soccer for a couple of hours, and these guys were non-verbal, so they had significant intellectual disabilities and autism. So they expressed themselves through yelling and whooping and things like that, you know, just expressions of joy, but not verbal. And that's part of the reason I love them, because they were so disinhibited. So I was like, you know, finished playing soccer, and I was going washing my hands at the bathroom before helping prepare for the barbecue. And this woman, this older lady came over to me, and she was very solemn and very serious. And she just goes, "You must be such a special person to work with those poor, sick boys." And I'm like, we've just spent a couple of hours playing soccer. We're about to have Barbie. And then these guys are going to go home and probably lay on the couch and watch telly all afternoon. And it led me to really thinking that, you know, people think, oh, these poor people with disabilities. And it's like, well, they lead lives. They lead good lives. It might take a different shape to yours and my life. It might have different things in it, but it can still be a really good life. And working the disability sector is a way to help contribute to that and facilitate that good life. So that's a fundamental thing I like to consider.
Absolutely. And I'm sure there'd be many, many stories that you have along those lines.
Yeah.
It's quite something that's said a lot, and you witness it being said, and you're like, really? Like, sometimes people just need to.
Yeah. Like the poor sick boys. I'm like, actually, there's a whole lot of difficult decisions they don't have to make in life that you and I have to. They've got everything facilitated. I consider their lives actually pretty good.
They're pretty good, yeah. They get to still, you know, run around, kick a soccer ball and have a Barbie.
I know. And I was personally having a great day at work. It was excellent.
No, I love it. And I'm sure that you'd be able to take away your stories and cherish a lot of them and a lot of your experiences.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Now, what uni courses do you think are best suited for someone who wants to teach or work with children with disabilities?
I'm biased because I did it and I'm familiar with it. But in my management roles in the sector, I've also employed a lot of people with a psychology or behaviour science background, because it will give you a good basic understanding into the cognitive issues around disability. Also, back to that written expression thing, anything that requires you to analyse information and turn it into something practical. So once again, the behaviour science, psychology, anything like that, social work, those kind of community services, yes, but community services is a good TAFE kind of start. Community services, disability or mental health, both of those are very good qualifications. Once again, I am biased due to familiarity, but, you know.
It works, right? It works. Now, I must ask, what is the advice that you would give your younger self?
My younger self, career-wise, I wouldn't change anything. I've never had any issues getting.
Do you know what is so funny? I hear that every week. This is the question I ask everyone because I'm
Fantastic.
fascinated. And everyone's like, we would not change a thing about our journey.
Yeah. I've always had a choice of employers. I've always had and I'm not talking myself up in that respect. It's just a factor of people who stay in the disability sector, enter it with integrity and stay in it for a long time. There is an unfortunate thing in the disability sector of when people are really good as a disability support worker, they get promoted, which is a real shame because you're promoting all of the expertise out of the sector. I think the sector as a whole has learnt a little bit from that and is now enriching the role of disability support worker a bit more, so people stay in it for longer. So I took on a role as a house supervisor at a very young age, which was a bit weird because I was supervising my parents' age and then having to discipline them at my age. So I guess I would not, like, my single piece of advice I would give myself is, work in the disability sector, but stay as a disability support worker for longer. Don't, when you're offered the promotion, don't take it. So
don't rush, just take your time.
My advice is, don't necessarily get promoted. Is that advice?
I don't think so. I don't think there is ever such thing as bad advice at the moment. Because you've got to live your life to the fullest. You've got to do what you can. Learn from your mistakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit of your story. I told you this would just fly.
Absolutely. Goodness, is that over?
It's over, done. And I'm sure, so many other people would love to hear stories and love to catch up and have a chat with you. So if you are looking to touch base with Leanne, please do jump on and find Leanne wherever she may be on the socials.
I'm all over them.
You're all over them? Done.
All over them.
Thank you so much again for donating your time to come on and have a chat with me today. It's been great learning about, the disability sector and how urgent and people going into the industry is needed. Like, these jobs are available. If you're interested, jump in. There is so much work, and you're doing work that you'll love forever, basically.
Yep.
Thank you, Skills Plus Embrace, for allowing us to borrow you today as well. And of course, the Wendy South Gippsland Bass Coast, Bass Coast, I think that's better how you say it, at the LLEM for referring us to you today, and all the many other peoples I must thank. Teachers, remember, lesson plans and recordings are available on our website. It's good fun. All right, thanks guys, and we'll see you then.